There are 30 jaw-dropping Colorado facts that will shatter your map of the Centennial State, and today we're counting down the 10 you absolutely cannot miss. What you think you know, mountains, ski lifts, and postcard peaks, barely scratches the surface. Ready to rewire your sense of place? 10. The town that voted to keep its own haunting. In Silver Cliff, a quiet cemetery sits on a sage-brushed rise, and on certain cold, windless nights, blue lights appear, soft orbs that float just above the gravestones, drifting like lanterns without hands to hold them. The stories go back to the 1880s, when miners hiking home swore they watched the lights waver and cluster, only to slip away if chased. Investigators have come and gone with cameras and magnetometers, setting up all-night vigils and filing away theories. Piezoelectric sparks from stressed rock, reflections from distant ranch lights, St. Elmo's fire, or spirits with unfinished business. None have stuck. When talk turned to installing bright lights that might wash the mystery out of the cemetery, residents pushed back. Why scrub away the wonder? Why trade a living piece of local identity for a neat answer on a clipboard? They kept the darkness, and with it, the story. This matters because it shows a community choosing awe over certainty, an admission that not everything rare and beautiful needs to be solved to be valuable. 9. The Dunes That Sing. Stand on a high ridge at Great Sand Dunes National Park at the edge of evening. The wind slackens. Dry, sun-warmed grains begin sliding down the steep slip face in a shimmering sheet. Then it happens. The dune hums, a long, chest-deep note like a foghorn, a giant cello bowing one low, impossible string. It's not your imagination. The grains vibrate together as they cascade, a million tiny impacts syncing up into sound. Conditions have to be just right, a dry, loose surface riding over a slightly damp layer that keeps the flow coherent. Hikers have been known to trigger the voice themselves, pushing down a small avalanche with heel-to-toe steps and hearing the earth answer back. The sound can carry across the basin, startling first-timers into laughter and shivers. Why it matters is simple. It turns geology into music and reminds us that even the quietest landscapes have voices when you know how to listen. 8. The UFO Watchtower in the middle of nowhere. In the vast, luminous emptiness of the San Luis Valley near Hooper, the stars spill to the horizon and the air feels thin enough to ring. That's where Judy Messeline put up a 2-story metal platform as a lighthearted nod to the valley's reputation for strange skies and watched it become an international crossroads. Now the UFO Watchtower draws night owls, astronomers, skeptics, and the truly curious. The valley's high, closed basin and steady winds can conjure atmospheric oddities, lensing clouds shaped like saucers, temperature inversions that make headlights hover. Those explain some of it. Others? Hundreds of logged sightings and stories, from silent triangles to lights that zig when physics says zag. The deck bristles with guest books thick with handwriting from across the globe, and a quirky energy garden of trinkets left by visitors who felt something. This matters because curiosity is a gravity all its own. If you build a place to wonder together, even an empty plane becomes a meeting ground for big questions. The strangest fact is still coming. And while we wait for the data to process, subscribe to the Bureau of Geographic Inquiry for more global dispatches. 7. The buried redwood forest under the prairie. At Florissant Fossil Beds, the grassland opens to a scattering of mighty stumps, ancient redwoods as wide as small cars, their bark textures still crisp, their roots sprawling into earth that wasn't always this dry. 34 million years ago, volcanoes in the 39-mile field woke and hurled ash across a lake-dotted valley of towering trees. Mudflows and ashfalls buried trunks where they stood, entombing a forest in a blink. Over eons, minerals seeped in. Wood became stone. Paleontologists have split the paper-thin shales nearby to reveal a delicate archive, leaves with veins you can trace, a fossilized wasp's wing, a fish's last ripple. Thousands of species preserved in astonishing detail. Walking the trail, you can touch the ridge of a bark plate and understand, viscerally, that these giants were ancient long before the first human story. It matters because it compresses deep time into a moment you can stand beside, a reminder that continents reroute themselves while trees wait and mountains blink. 6. The largest flat-topped mountain on Earth. Grand Mesa rises from the canyon country like a misplaced continent, more than 500 square miles of basalt-capped highland, its rim dropping off in sheer cliffs as if a titan carved a table and left it there to cool. On top, at 10,000 feet, summer groves of aspen clatter in the wind, and more than 300 lakes glitter in the hollows, stacked like coins beneath spruce. Moose browse the willows. In winter, the snow piles deep enough to swallow fences. Below, the land falls away into desert peach orchards, vineyards, and red rock, two worlds within the span of a single view. The reason it endures is written in its bones. Hard lava flows, poured out millions of years ago, armor the mesa while softer rock around it erodes. This matters because it's a masterclass in geologic resilience, an elevated refuge reminding you that time doesn't just tear down. It protects, preserves, and sometimes lifts an entire ecosystem onto its own private stage. 5. The underground missile silo turned luxury home. Drive the eastern plains, and you'll pass seas of grass and windmills, and nothing to hint that beneath your tires the Cold War once waited in the dark. Atlas and Titan sites dotted this country in the 1960s, hardened capsules with blast doors as thick as a man is tall, labyrinths of tunnels and launch control rooms designed for a world on edge. When they were decommissioned, some sites went for astonishingly little at government auctions. A few buyers saw more than concrete and rust. They hauled out tons of debris, scrubbed oil-stained walls, installed spiral staircases where ladders once clanged. Where airmen watched gauges, there are now theater seats and a projection screen. Where rocket fuel hissed, a pool throws blue light on poured-in-place walls. Above ground, a nondescript hatch and pasture waving under a big sky. Below, science fiction made domesticated. This matters because land carries secret histories, and yesterday's fear can become tomorrow's strangest real estate flex, a rewilding of space from weapon to sanctuary. 4. The wind that drives people insane. Along the Front Range, there's a winter sound people learn to dread. A freight train roar advancing out of the foothills. The Chinook, warm downslope wind, topples out of the mountains and plunges into the plains, compressing and heating as it falls. Thermometers can leap 40 degrees in a single afternoon. Snow vanishes as if a hairdryer has been set on high. Sidewalks run with sudden meltwater that wasn't there an hour ago. It feels miraculous and a little wrong. Windows rattle, tempers fray. Hospitals and hotlines report upticks in headaches and insomnia when the pressure roller coasters. Similar winds in Europe and California have been notorious for the same thing. Newcomers fling open their coats. Old-timers mutter and reach for aspirin. This matters because invisible air can reset the mood of entire cities and their rhythms in a day. Proof that weather doesn't just shape mountains, it shapes minds and routines too. 3. The ancient sea monster in the Rockies. 80 million years ago, a warm inland ocean split North America, and what's now Colorado was seafloor, murky blue water above, silts and clays settling below. In the 1970s, high in what we now call the Rockies, paleontologists working Cretaceous shale turned up the bones of a long-necked marine predator, an elasmosaur, in rock that sits thousands of feet above today's sea level. Imagine a creature with a body like a turtle without a shell, fins instead of feet, and a ridiculously long neck studded with teeth. An elegant hunter ghosting through water where hawks now ride thermals. Later, the land heaved. Plates shrugged. That seabed rode up and up until it was folded into ridges where snow lingers and pine sap smells like sunlight. This matters because it rewires your sense of place. Stand on a high pass and know that under your boots lies ocean mud. And in museums across the state, jaws and vertebrae testify that the Rockies were once a sea, and the evidence swims through stone. 2. The river that belongs to everyone but Colorado. The Colorado River begins as meltwater on high peaks, trickling off tundra into a thread that gathers and cuts its way west. But downstream, the signatures of a century ago still hold sway. The 1920s deals that make up the law of the river divvied up its flow at a time when gauges read a blessed stretch of wet years, and today's allocations don't fit the river's slimmer reality. Most of the water that leaps to life in Colorado is promised to other states, and to Mexico, before Colorado can use what it might wish to keep. 40 million people drink from this system. Farms, tribes, cities, and ecosystems depend on its pulse. Reservoirs that once seemed bottomless are ringed with bathtub rings that grow each summer. Negotiators shuffle between climate models, legal texts, and weather forecasts. Ranchers and mayors watch the headwaters and hedge their bets. This matters because in the West, water is power, and the fate of communities from Denver to the Imperial Valley hinges on compacts inked when rain was wishful thinking. 1. The state that gave itself away. In 1861, surveyors set out to carve a border on a map into the dirt of the world, the 109th meridian, clean as a ruler's edge, to separate what would be Colorado from what would be Utah. But the earth curves, instruments drift, and mountain weather laughs at certainty. They hauled chains and transits over mesas and through canyons, checked their angles by starlight, and scratched a line they believed true. It wandered. By the time the dust settled, a sliver that should have been Colorado, on the order of a few square miles, lay on the wrong side and was counted as Utah. Modern precision later revealed the error, neat as a geometry problem. The old line, however, had been ratified by habit, use, and law. It remains. This matters because borders feel absolute until you see the shaky hand behind them. Proof that our sharpest lines are drawn by people improvising in difficult places, and that sometimes the story we keep is the one we've already told on maps and deeds. Colorado is not just mountains and ski lifts. It is music in the sand and lights in a graveyard. It is oceans curled into the sky and desert rivers parceled by ink. It is a mesa that refuses to come down, and a winter wind that rearranges your plans and your pulse. If this top 10 lit up your curiosity, remember there are 30 wild facts in the full story. Drop your favorite in the comments and tell me which one changed how you see the Centennial State and the ground under your own feet.